Okay, so what I'm about to do is show you guys how I edit photos for astrophotography. First thing, I shoot on a 5D Mark II, which is hilariously bad in low light. How I get around that is by stacking photos, and that's what gets rid of the grain in the images. If I open up one of my images here, you can zoom in, see, wow, really grainy. So what I've done to get around that is I've taken 13 raw images that I now have on my desktop, and you can see them over here. What I'm going to do first, before I do any stacking, is I'm going to drag them all into my photo editing program. For me, it's Luminar 4. For you, it might be Lightroom or anything else that you would do to do generic photo adjustments in. So I've just brought up all 13 of these photos. And what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to bring our exposure up. If I bring it up a whole ton, you can see how bad the grain is. We got this purple vignetting that's no fun. I'm going to bring it up a bit, general contrast up a little bit. And there's a couple things you can do to make the stars, the Milky Way, pop a bit more. One way that I've seen a lot of people do it is taking your highlights, bringing those down, taking your whites, turning those up. That creates a bit more contrast in the sky, but Luminar has a thing where you can add contrast specific to certain ranges of light frequencies. So I can go highlights, contrast, turn that up, bring the balance back, and we've got a lot more pop already right out there. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to go back and go to HSL, and I'm going to get rid of purple, I'm going to get rid of magenta, I'm going to get rid of red because there's none of that in any of the seen naturally. Orange is what's going to usually be in the Milky Way a bit, so I like to boost that up and turn up our luminance a little bit. Yellow's sometimes there, but doesn't really do a whole lot that I'm happy with in this specific photo, so I'm going to leave it be. I like to bring structure back a little bit. If you add too much structure, your photo starts to look like a painting, and I'm not a huge fan of that. It's already got a bit of a vignette going, so I'll leave that. And so we're only doing really basic adjustments here. So now I'm going to go over here, I'm going to sync adjustments with all these photos, so it's going to do what I just did to every single one of these 13 photos. So now that it's done that, now I'm going to export all of these so that I have the JPEGs. And we're done. That was literally like 5 minutes. Okay, so next thing we're going to do now that we have all of these JPEGs here is I'm going to drag all of these into Starry Landscape Stacker. Now, there's another app that people use for PC, but I'm on a Mac, so Starry Landscape Stacker it is. So we drag all of these puppies into there. Boom. It's going to read all 13 of the images and try to figure out where the sky is. And it's going to do a pretty good job, but we're going to have to refine it. So a Starry Landscape Stacker, basically what happens is it puts red dots where it thinks the sky is, and you add red dots where you think the sky is, and the sum of your guys' collective reasoning becomes what the sky ends up being in the AI process of masking it out. So what you want to do is add red dots where you want the sky to be. In this case, we're over a lake, and I want it to stack the stars' reflections in the lake just like it would up in the sky. So I'm going to paint red dots down there. I'm going to erase some dots where I went over the trees because I wasn't paying attention. And we're going to call that pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click Find Sky, and it's going to paint in blue everything it thinks the sky is. So we're going to adjust it a little bit. It always misses things in the edges, but that's fine. It doesn't need to be too perfect, but we're going to go in and try to make it as pretty close as we can. So now we've got sky, sky, not sky. So what we're going to do is hit Align and Composite. And what you're going to see is foreground is going to stay the same. It's going to stack all of those together where they are, because this is a tripod shot and all of them are taken from the same spot. But as some of you may know, as you're watching the night sky, things move. Or things don't move, we move. So now that we've done that, we can see all our stars are together and all our trees also together. So now we're really cooking here. So I'm going to save this. It's going to put this on the desktop here. Unlike Luminar, it's going to do that pretty fast. So now we've got one TIFF file, and this is going to be our single image that we're going to do adjustments in Luminar again. Now we're going to drag this guy in. So now we've got an image to work with that's not very grainy at all. So now we can really do the more creative type changes to it. And my M50 is running out of batteries, so we're gonna come right back. Okay, jumping off where we left off, we now have our single image. And so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see that there's some green in there, and I'm not a fan of green in the sky, so we're going to take that out. Actually, we're going to play with the hue a little bit, see if we can... No, that's actually kind of cool. Okay, we're going to leave it like that. So now we've got our image. Now we can push it up even more, and you can see we don't have that grain that we used to. Big brain thoughts a few minutes ago. So now we can really push that up. Go nuts with the contrast if we want, but I don't like my photos to be too contrasty in the stars, because again it starts to make them look pretty fake, and if people see a photo that looks over processed, they're just gonna assume, oh, they did crazy stuff to that to make it look the way that it did. And I'd rather people look at the photos and just think, wow, nature's amazing. So to get that wow, nature's amazing look, we can't do crazy things to it. But we are going to do some things. So we're going to bring our exposure up a little bit. We can do that same thing with the highlights and the whites, get some extra contrast in the sky, but that's a little bit much. Again, something I hope you take from this is that it's all just fiddling. That's really most of what's going on here. Just playing with things to make sure they look good. And so in Luminar, this is something that Luminar has that Lightroom doesn't. It's got a whole bunch of these creative options that you can do that kind of do separate things to the photos. So Mystical is kind of like an Orton effect where you can... Hey, my girlfriend's gonna love that she's in this video. Okay, so there's this, which kind of gives it this glowy sort of feel, and that's kind of fun, but I'm not a huge fan of it here. So I'm just gonna take it out. This is another good one for Milky Way stuff. Kind of makes the highlights glow a bit. But to make that happen, I'm actually gonna bring our exposure down to make the Milky Way pop more, so that we're not just like all over in the sky. So I want the Milky Way to be the thing that really pops here. So let's do that again, and now it should be more with just the Milky Way that glows. We've got some horizon light, but that's not going to ruin the photo. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and dodge and burn, and I'm just going to lighten up the parts where the Milky Way is bright and darken where it's not bright. Pretty simple. And then we're going to dial it back afterwards, because you'll see it's really intense. Just go a little bit there, a little bit there, and then darken it. Want to be pretty specific about it. You can get really nitpicky about this specific part of this, but I'm gonna go real simple just for the sake of this. So now we're gonna bring it all the way down and just add it in a little bit. I'm gonna erase some of this here. Just really get that galactic center popping. Have something like that. So now we've got this. Now it's popping a lot more. So now another thing that's great about stacking is we can really push our foreground. And so I'm going to take this gradient that's already set pretty close. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to use this to brighten up our foreground. And it's amazing after stacking it how far you can push it without destroying the image quality. So here we've already pushed it pretty far. We can do more stuff to it. Oh, I kind of want it even brighter than that. I don't know, that might have to do for now. But now, what is really cool about this is we can see the Milky Way reflecting on the lake, and I am a big fan of that. And so now we're pretty close to how I'd like the photo to look. I think I'm gonna add another adjustment layer just so that I can do the gradient mask again. I'm gonna do the exact same thing on another layer and just push it harder. Again, I really have no idea what I'm doing, but we're figuring it out together. So here's some. As you bring it up, as you bring your levels up on this lower half, you're gonna see that those shadows start to look pretty faded. And real easy to bring that back while pushing our highlights even farther is just slide the contrast up. Slide it up till the lower shadows match with the upper shadows, and then I'm going to dial it back a little bit to get that. And we've got a lot for this orange in this lower half. So I'm going to take our vibrance and bring it down a little bit to match what we've got up here. And I am pretty happy with this. Another cool thing in Luminar is you can slide the slider and see what you had before versus what you have now. And I don't know, it's kind of fun. So then we can export that. Edit. Now we can wait 1,000 minutes for it to export this one image. And ta-da! We have our final image. So we went from 13 of these to 1 of these. And I'm pretty happy with that. That can go on my Instagram all day long. I'm never going to complain about it. So if you watched all of this, bless your soul. Yeah. I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to recording videos. So if you're watching, please validate me in the comments of this. If you want to see anything else, just let me know and maybe I'll do it.